by saying the following. There is no way in 3 days I can share with you 20 years experience. There is no way I can go individually and say, okay, if this happens, this is what you must do. The job that I took responsibility for, because I know you're going to leave here overwhelmed, but on Monday morning, you've actually got to start implementing. So the biggest gift I can actually give you is not these 3 days. It's the tools when you get to the office and you're all by yourself and you ask the question, now, what do I do now? And that is why I just want to spend 2 minutes on the resources today. So if you can just get the grant making guide. And if you can turn to page 27. You will see this is part of a chapter, the very first chapter in the book, that says determining a strategic framework. If you turn over the page, you'll see it's actually the material we covered yesterday, how to develop a business case for CSI on the left-hand side. So I just want to say, even when you go back and you get lost, there's a handbook to assist you. If you turn to page 131, that whole chapter is dedicated to conducting the research. So from the social baseline study, why should you do it? The social impact and opportunity assessment, why would people use it? When would you use it? How to use it? What is the kind of competencies that you're going to require? If you turn to page 140, sorry, I'm just trying to, the numbers are so small. 148. You'll see that is the whole section where we start introducing the whole monitoring, evaluation, impact assessment section, and the first page there is the theory of change. So, apart from the slides that I gave you, here, the handbook itself will give you a lot more detail. If you then just go towards the back of the book, page 164. There is a template to develop a whole CSI strategy. From, you know, where do you start? How do you develop the business case? How do you use the information from your social baseline, your socioeconomic survey? Because that's going to create the local context for you. It focuses on the engagement and the planning. How do you set your objectives, your guiding principles, your criteria, your focus areas? On the next page, you know, what is going to be your sustainability, exit or handover strategy? How are you going to staff? How are you going to budget for that? So that is just within the grant making guide. If you now look at the monitoring, evaluation and impact assessment guide, and you go to page 14, 1-4, and it is right up front in the book, the basics of measurement. The very first thing we cover on page 14 is the logic model framework. what it is, why it is important, how it works, and then we go into the theory of change. What it is, why it's important, how it works. How do you apply it? So I just wanted to take you again back to resources where we go into much more detail. And if you'll just allow me, and you go to page 133. You'll see we've developed a tool that you can use to develop a theory of change. And what we've done is we've left like a column blank for you. So you can replicate this, you can give it to each of your program managers, but at least you'll work from the same basis. Thank you. So you see, all you've got to write in there is your program name. So what is the problem you're trying to solve? You know, what is going to be your entry point? What is the long-term change you foresee? It's guiding questions so that the program managers knows. Okay, well, because you see, if you do a theory of change for the first time, you're like, what am I trying to do here? What am I trying to figure out? What is the answer I'm looking for? Because we don't even know what question we have to ask. Okay, so I'm just saying, I've tried to yesterday just give you a basis, but I don't want to just leave you there. I want to really encourage you to use the additional information, because this is what you're going to, now when you come back to the office on Monday, you want to now do one, because you might have yesterday developed one for one of your portfolios, which is education. But guess what? Back at the office, there's 3 more portfolios waiting for you. Okay? And then you've got to do it 3 more times. And then like, how do I do this thing? Okay. So I just wanted to say, I've really tried to build almost like a library of resources for you. Now, on that point, if you think about where we started yesterday, I hope you also noticed I tried to steer away from the words CSI. Because I'm trying to school my own mind not to use those words. And I'll tell you why as well, because it's not just because of my work working into Africa, and they don't call it CSI in Africa, in Ghana or Kenya or Tanzania. They still speak about CSR. But it's when I'm looking for specific knowledge. And I want to see, so what is the Rockefellers doing in education, for instance? I can't use the CSI strategy of the Rockefeller Foundation. I'm not going to get that because they don't use the word CSI. So my own language, I'm trying to internationalize. Not only for my own knowledge, but to really benchmark the work globally so that we speak a global language. If you put in the CSI strategy, guess what? You're not even going to get to Rockefeller. You're only going to get probably Nedbank, Mercedes-Benz, local companies. Because that's the only place in the world where we use the word CSI. Okay, so if you really want to standardize, best practice, we've got to use different terminology. Okay, so just in that context, also because the context is changing. The kind of clients I work with aren't just corporates. Can you see what I'm saying? So by calling it corporate social investment, it's like these are the only people who invest in social initiatives, which is not true either. So leading to the terminology, so I wanted to create a context because some of us still speak about CSI, some of us are going to speak about SED, and some of us still speak about CSR. So I just wanted to create that kind of platform because what I've learned is we have to speak a language that our internal stakeholders will also understand. So you might as well define that. So that was where we started. Then there was the trends section. Now, the trends section is a total of 102 slides. There was no way I could cover that yesterday in an hour. and I don't know if you've noticed, if you will look at the resources, I generally focused yesterday morning on the executive summary. Okay, but there's, like I said, that does not do justice to the whole research report. There are many more trends, there are many more forecasts. So I just want to again point your attention to, there's a lot more information in the total research. So I focused yesterday specifically because our focus is on was on strategy yesterday. The biggest impacts that I foresee that it will have on your strategies for this year and next year. I did spend quite a bit of time on the business case. Because you are corporates or business companies, the biggest change that I'm seeing is companies trying to do good. That was the old way, which is why I've shared with you the evolution of CSI. Now it's very much about the reason why we do it. Where's the value we're going to add about it? So, and that establishes the business case for us. And then we spent a little bit of time on the theory of change, the theory of practice, and the logic model framework. The theory of change, as I said to you yesterday, is this organizational framework. The reason why I didn't spend so much time on that and prefer to spend more time on theory of change is because a theory of practice generally is only going to happen or be done depending on your own funding cycles, but when you do a strategic review. So it's about every 5 years or every 10 years, or when a new CEO comes in, or you actually want to change your practice. Then that's the only time you're actually going to develop the theory of practice. And the theory of practice is your hypothesis about your organization, whether you're a trust or a foundation or a CSI division, your vision for why you do the social development, why you do social investment. So it's organization specific. And you're going to link it between your organization values, your organization strategy. It is the part of this business case that you're building. Now, it focuses specifically on the investor intent. What is the change we as a company want to affect through our social investment? It's not as specific as education. We haven't even got to education. And this is this very broad statement, what is the change we want to facilitate? The reason why the theory of practice is so important, because, and it's right here, when it's going to come to evaluation and impact assessment, that's one of the things, the major things that needs to be assessed. So it creates a framework for your future monitoring, your future evaluation, your future assessment. Because you can't just look at assessment, just what we've achieved in education, because that's not the only change you wanted to facilitate. So your theory of practice gives a broad framework for your measurement that's going to follow. So what's the difference between a theory of practice and a theory of change? A theory of change is your hypothesis for how you're going to change the world or a situation in a specific environment, either education, either health. Now it speaks to you much more about the portfolios and the focus areas. And the reason why I spend so much time is because you've got to do one for your portfolio. And you've got to do one for each program. And you're most probably going to do it for every funding cycle. So if you've got an annual funding cycle, you're going to do it every year. If it's a flagship and it's a 5-year program, you're going to review it annually. But you're going to start with the first one you created. You're going to update it most probably. And when you get to evaluation, you're going to submit all 5 as part of that evaluation and assessment process. So with theory of change, that's why I paid so much attention, you're going to do many times for every portfolio, for every program. And the reason, yes, I'll get back to you now. So this the reason for a specific theory of change is because you want to prove that you've solved a specific issue. Richard.
So it's come back to the what and the how.
Yes.
What?
Yes. What do you want to change? And then the theory of change is how you're going to change it.
So I'm just checking here. So you say what? Is it going to be education, health, and entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Yes.
That's the three profile. And then how? What in education? What?
That's correct. So, and then you're going to have first a theory of change for education. And then within education, you're going to have different programs. So you may choose to have a bursary program. You may choose to have an early childhood development program. You may choose to have a science and maths program. So you've got to develop one for each of those. Then we didn't spend a lot of time on logic model frameworks. And the reason why I didn't do that is because we jumped too quickly. Because it's so easy to do. You know, this is the program input. We're going to invest 10 million rand, and then we're going to have coaching or mentoring classes, or we're going to have Saturday workshops, and then the outcomes is going to be so many teachers, so many learners. The outputs, I beg your pardon, the outcomes is be improved knowledge. So what is the impact? Increased pass rates. Because that's such standard practice. But if it's not informed by a theory of change, your evaluator is going to poke holes in this. There's one difference that I've made into this logic model framework. I've added one aspect at the end. I don't know if you noticed, return. Because a lot of investors at this point in time don't just want to know, so what is the change, but also what is in it for us? What did we achieve? Remember why? Because we've established a business case. The reason why we're going to focus on education is because we want to recruit the skills or the people that comes out of an educational process. So the return on investment is, so how many people of those have we recruited? So I'm adding on every logic model framework that I do, I add that aspect of return. So the purpose of a logic model framework is it's a methodology to help with planning, to help with monitoring, to help with evaluation. It provides the basis for identifying what kind of activity, what kind of indicators to affect that change. So what is the difference again between a logic model framework and a theory of change? Again, a theory of change provides a bigger picture for you. It shows all the different pathways that you've considered, your theories of how to facilitate that change. It describes how you think the change will happen. There's three words you can use when I develop theories of change. So, what? These are all my assumptions, all my theories. So, this is what the situation's about. So, what if? And that's the kind of interventions now. So if I want to affect pass rates, so what if I train teachers? What if I focus on the learners? What if I give science equipment? What if I provide a library? Those are the different pathways that I could get there. It is generally not a linear thinking process for those of you very analytical. It's a mess. And that is why I gave you blank pieces of paper, because you're trying to make connections of how this change will happen. And it's not necessarily in a linear process. It describes what you think will happen, the way it will happen. The most important thing is a theory of change is a tool to design portfolios and programs. The difference between a theory of change and a logic model framework is that logic model framework is used to monitor and evaluate. So it's got nothing to do with the design. It's got to do with the performance measurement. Okay. So a logic model framework gives you a detailed description. Once you've figured out what is the problem, what if I solve it this way, how am I going to solve it? It could be used, so we plan to do this to get this result. So those are the kind of words that you're going to use. It is normally shown as a matrix, like I said, a value chain. It is linear, because now all your thoughts are organized. You've excluded what you're not going to do, and this is somebody else's problem. I'm not going to go there. This is what I've decided my logic is, which is why I said to you yesterday, nobody can tell you it's wrong. Because out of all of the options you could have chosen, this was your change pathway. As long as it's documented, nobody can argue that you were right or wrong, because those were the choices that you have made. So, it does not include any evidence. It's just very clearly, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is the outcome, and this is how I'm going to measure it. So it's a very precise tool.